All right, well, let's get started. I want to thank Taya once again for being our speaker for Table Talk Tuesday this month. And I want to thank you all for joining us. I know many of us can understand and feel this topic so much, especially me right now. This topic is close to my heart because I do feel overwhelmed during this time, and it's just trying to figure out right now how to juggle it all. I'm personally going through a rebrand. I just have way too many brands and I just have too much going on. So I'm trying to consolidate that. Just of course with the pandemic and everything else that is going on. And I know many of the lady bosses here are multi-passionate entrepreneurs. They have so many different endeavors that they're juggling. So when I'm part of Tanya's email list, and once her email came, which you need to join her email list. Her emails are always amazing. And but once this one came through, it just really resonated with me, and she shared some tips in that. So I would love for her to introduce herself, and we can get started with the presentation on what to do when we're feeling overwhelmed.
All right, thanks, Latoya. Well, a little bit about me. As Latoya said, I'm Tonia Kendrick, and I'm from toniakendrick.com. And I have done the rebrand thing too. I rebranded at the end of the year. My brand before that was Solopreneur Diaries, so you may have heard of that before.
Yeah.
And that rebrand process, oh my goodness, that's just a lot of work. But I'm really glad that I did it and that it's over. So my advice, if you're thinking about rebranding, is do it sooner rather than later, because it's only going to get harder as you go along. But what I do is I help mostly female solo entrepreneurs grow their side hustle and their startup businesses. And I teach them how to create and execute strategies, how to organize and systematize their businesses, and how to level up their productivity. Before I started my business, I worked in the corporate world for 25 years, and I did a lot of different things. So I have sort of a very diverse background. I worked in human resources, marketing, training, sales, management, you name it, I did it. And one of the things that came out of that experience is I am a productivity junkie. I am always trying to find the most efficient ways to get things done. And I love systems. I love to come up with systems. I love to optimize systems. So that is one of the things that I like to help other small business owners with. It's, organizing their business, systematizing their business, being able to get more done in the limited time that we have available. So since you're here and that's our topic today, I'm going to assume that you're either feeling overwhelmed right now or you've been overwhelmed in the past. Anybody feel that way? Okay, so we've all been overwhelmed from time to time. It really is a very common problem, especially with women, because we have so much going on, and especially for those of us who run our own businesses. So we all go through these periods of overwhelm where it's just too much. And I was going through one of those really specifically a couple of months ago. I've had a lot going on in my personal life, and I was trying to keep the business going the same, going on all cylinders, and deal with all of the personal stuff at the same time. And it just became too much. And so that's what led to that email that I sent out that Latoya mentioned earlier. So, one of the things that I want to emphasize today is that trying to push through like that, it's not the answer. It is just a recipe for burnout. But there are some really specific strategies that you can implement to help you stop feeling overwhelmed and to deal with the overwhelm. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, let me grab some tea.
But she's in Georgia, everyone.
I'm in Georgia.
Love Georgia.
My hair's getting frizzy, even as we speak, from the humidity. So before we get into those specific strategies, I want to talk just a little bit about the symptoms of overwhelm. And they're very, very similar to the symptoms of burnout, which really shouldn't be a surprise because burnout and overwhelm, they go hand in hand. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. You're overwhelmed and you get burnout. You're burnout, you get overwhelmed. So, drop a comment if any of these signs or symptoms resonate with you. You have difficulty sleeping. When you're overwhelmed, it can be hard to turn your brain off. You get caught in this loop of thinking about everything that you have to do or that you want to do, and you just can't sleep. So that's one of the signs that you're overwhelmed. Another one is that you lack energy. You're always tired. Even if you are getting sleep, you wake up feeling tired because, again, your brain is still working on all of that stuff. You're anxious. You're stressed out. Maybe you've lost your appetite or you're overeating. Different people deal with food in different ways. Some of us eat more, some of us eat less. I'm not one of the eating less people. I tend to overeat when I get stressed out and overwhelmed. You have difficulty focusing. All of those things are swirling around and you can't focus on any given task because it's like, oh my God, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. You lack motivation. When you're overwhelmed, you may decide that it's easier to just not do anything. There's so much. What's the point? You can't get it all done. And that's me. That is one of the things that I really do a lot. When I feel overwhelmed, I just want to crawl in bed and pull the covers up over my head and not deal with it at all. So I don't feel like doing anything. I lack that motivation. So those are some of the symptoms. So I see we've got a couple of comments here. Yes, has felt that way this morning, both lack of sleep and no energy. Yeah, I mean, it's stress, it's burnout, it's overwhelm. They all go together. So let's talk about some of the ways that you can combat that overwhelm. First and foremost, and I've got 5 tips I'm going to share with you today. So this is the first one. Take something off your plate. Ask yourself this: what is one thing that I can take off of my plate that will reduce my stress level right now? Overwhelm often results from being overcommitted. We say yes to things. We say yes to too many things. So what have you said yes to that maybe you can back off of? Do you have recurring appointments or obligations that you can either put on pause or cut out altogether? And that is something to kind of keep in mind, is that you don't have to take these things off of your plate forever. You can just put it on pause for a little while. And I bet that there is something that you can take off of your plate right now, even if it's just a temporary removal, that will help you feel less stressed. So I mentioned that I was going through a lot of overwhelm a couple of months ago. And one of the things that I've done for about a year now is I had a weekly Facebook Live show in my Facebook group. So I went online every Tuesday at noon and I did, a live talk, kind of like what I'm doing today. But it was weekly. And so I was committed to doing it. But it had gotten to the point where, with all of the stress that I had going on, it was like, okay, I don't think I can keep doing this every single week. Something's got to give. And so I thought about it and thought about it. And I remember the day that I made the decision to put that on pause for a little while. I was doing some work outside in my yard, and I was thinking about the live show. It was on the weekend, and it was like, what am I going to talk about this week? Oh my God, I've got to come up with a topic. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to take a hiatus from the live show. I'm going to put it on pause indefinitely. And honestly, I still haven't decided what I'm going to do about it. But when I made that decision to put that on pause, I felt so much relief. It just took that weight off of my shoulders. And I immediately did not feel so overwhelmed. So if there's something that you can take off of your plate, do that, even if it's just temporarily. The second thing is get organized. I know a lot of times when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's because you're trying to hold too much stuff in your head. All of those things, they're all over the place, everything that we want to do. So start with the basics, sit down and make a list. Just write down everything that you've got to get done. And, what are your dates for those? When do they have to be done by? And then break that list up into the must-dos and the nice-to-haves. So here's an example of that. I had an affiliate launch 2 or 3 weeks ago. And launches, they take a lot. They're a lot of tasks, they're overwhelming. So I had this big list of things that I wanted to do for this launch. It was a lot. And I was, feeling a little bit overwhelmed about that. So I broke down my list and then I started moving things into a must do list and a nice to have list. And when I did that, what I realized was that, okay, writing and sending emails are my only must do's that I have in mind for this launch. For my business, email is the most important thing. So I put my emails in my must do list. Everything else I moved over to nice to have. And all of the nice to have stuff was like social media posts, writing a blog post, adding a hello bar to my website, all of those other things that you can do for launches. Those aren't really important for me. They don't tend to drive a lot of results. Email always drives results. So what I decided was, okay, I'm going to focus on the emails. I'm going to get my emails written and scheduled. And the rest of this stuff, if I get to it, that's okay. If I don't get to it, that's okay too. So get organized, make your must do list, make your nice to have list, and then just go with the must do's, and anything else, it's nice to have. It's not an absolute necessity. Okay, so number 3, set boundaries. And this is, we hear this so much as women that we need to set boundaries. It is so tempting because we have so many things that are hitting us all the time, and we just want to work harder and try to fit it all in. So one of my boundaries personally is that I'm going to take a 45-minute lunch break every day. This comes back from those corporate days that I mentioned earlier, because I'll just tell you, the last several years that I worked in corporate, I was on the road every single day, and I did not feel like I could stop and take a break for lunch. I ate lunch in my car every single day for almost 2 years. And so now that's one of my boundaries. That is a hard and fast rule for me. No matter what happens, no matter how busy things get, I am going to take a lunch break. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to read my book while I eat my lunch. I'm not going to work at the same time. So that's my boundary. You might want to set boundaries around what time your workday starts and stops. This is especially important if you work from home, because work can just bleed into your whole life, into your whole day. Or you might decide that you're not going to answer emails after a certain time. Maybe you have a set time that I'm going to answer emails, not after this, and maybe in the morning I'm not going to answer emails before this certain time. You might want to have some physical boundaries around your, where is your workspace? Again, if you work from home, I think it's especially important that you do that, because not only can your work bleed into your whole life, it can take over your whole house. So, have that dedicated office space. Okay, number 4, don't reinvent the wheel. If you are feeling overwhelmed, then this is not the time to try a bunch of new things. Don't try to do everything from scratch. Look around and see, what do you already have, or what have you already done that you can reuse? Leverage those resources that you already have in place. An example of this is yesterday, I had some emails that I needed to get written and scheduled for this week, for something else that I had coming up. And so I specifically had one that I needed to get scheduled for this morning, because I didn't want to have to worry about that today since I was doing this talk. And I sat down and I'm looking at my computer, at my screen, and I'm like, what am I going to say? I was just at a loss. I was kind of brain dead. I could not figure out what I wanted to say about this particular topic. And then I remembered that I already had an Instagram post that I had written on that topic. So I went and I grabbed that post and I pasted it into a Word document. And then I took out all the Instagram specific stuff, things like click on the link in my bio, and I took out all the little emojis and that kind of thing. And then I tweaked the introduction a little bit and added, a few more sentences, and boom, I had an email. So it was just a whole lot easier to create because I wasn't starting from scratch. I had a resource that I could leverage instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. So that's tip number 4. And tip number 5 is, and this is probably the most important one, prioritize the one thing that you have to do today. You've probably got a lot of things that you want to get done. I have a lot of things I want to get done every day, but there's always one thing that's more important than anything else. So figure out what that one thing is and do that. Once you get that one thing done, then you can rest easier because you know that you've gotten that one thing done. Maybe you'll have time to knock out some other things on your to-do list, or maybe you'll decide to take a break. Going back to that example from yesterday, I actually had 3 emails that I needed to write yesterday and get scheduled, but only one of them was the most important, and that was the one that had to go out today because it needed to go out this morning. So I did that one first, and then after that, I was like, okay, I got that one thing done. Now I can move on. So I was able to get my other emails written and scheduled. And then I took a break because then, after writing 3 emails in a row, my brain was kind of shot. So it's like, okay, now it's time for me to take a break and kind of regroup here. But, whether you move on and do other things or you take a break, you got that most important thing done. And that's how you move forward. That's how you move the needle in your business. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing the most important things. And so when you get into that habit of identifying what is the one most important thing I need to get done today, that it just frees your mind up so much, and that will help cut out a lot of that overwhelm because you know that you got that most important thing done. So let's recap really quickly. When you're feeling overwhelmed by everything that you have to do, pick one of these strategies. Not every strategy is going to work in every situation. And don't try to do all of them at once because that's just going to be overwhelming in and of itself. So, strategy number 1, take something off your plate. Strategy number 2, get organized. Start by creating that to-do list and then prioritize it by your must-dos. Strategy number 3, set boundaries. Strategy number 4, leverage the resources that you already have. Don't reinvent the wheel. And then strategy number 5 is to prioritize that one thing that you need to do today. So what questions do you guys have? Or, what do you need help with as far as feeling overwhelmed?
Can I just say that one of the things that resonated the most, all your strategies were great. I have to say the one that really resonated with me was what is driving results. Do that. Do those tasks. The things that are, like you said, nice to have, don't spend your time doing that. That's something I need to work on more. But what is actually bringing in your clients or bringing in the revenue that you need? Like, what is bringing in results? So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's bringing in the revenue, what's bringing in the leads.
Yeah.
Those are the things you need to focus on.
All right, let me know if you all have any, or let us know if you have any questions. Let me check in Facebook too.
Hi, this is Jessica. I do have a question.
Okay.
I guess my whole thing, and I'm a big systems person, but it's just when it comes to my personal life, I seem not to be able to systemize my personal life. Is there a tip, or I use a day planner or calendar? Is there a tip that you could provide to systemize my personal life?
I don't have a specific template just for personal life. I use Asana to keep everything, all of my tasks organized. And so I have a workspace in Asana for my business. I have a workspace in Asana for my personal life. So, I keep lists of, I don't list out every single task I need to do in my personal life, but what I do like to do is list out the things that need to be done on a recurring basis. What do I need to do once a month? What do I need to do once a week? Those kinds of things. And then, obviously I have a calendar to keep up with all of my appointments, personal appointments and business appointments. And, a lot of people suggest that you keep a separate business calendar and a separate personal calendar. I personally don't like to do that because I think it's too easy to overbook yourself if you have separate calendars. But what I do like to do for my calendar is I do it in Google Calendar. And so I have them set up as personal and business so I can hide one. If I only want to see my business appointments, I can hide my personal appointments, or vice versa. If I only want to see my personal appointments, then I can hide my business appointments, or I can see them all at the same time. And that way I make sure I don't, schedule a Zoom meeting when I have something going on in my personal life, like a doctor's appointment or whatever. So I like to be able to see them all at the same time, and that just helps me. That's one of the systems I use that helps me keep my personal life from getting lost by the wayside. Because I think for me, the business stuff tends to take over, and my personal life gets pushed to the wayside if I'm not really, really intentional about keeping my personal life at the forefront. Did that help?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good.
You mentioned setting standard business hours. I have to admit, I am extremely guilty of this. I will, working remote is incredibly amazing for, variety of reasons, but you also get hooped in that it's not a 9 to 5, it's no standard hours. You can work. For me, I work throughout the day, I work throughout the night. How do you set these standard business hours and really abide by them?
Well, the great thing about working for yourself is you can set the hours however you want to. Yeah. I'm constantly thinking about my corporate years when I had to work when they wanted me to work. I had to work that 8 to 5 schedule, and really most of the time it went way longer than that.
Yeah.
But, I set my schedule the way I want to work. So one of my examples I like to use is I work longer hours in the winter than I do in the summer, because I like to be outside in the summertime. I have a pool. And so lots of times what I do most days in the summer, if it's not raining, is I get up and I start working around 7:00, and I work until about 1. And then I take a break for the rest of the afternoon. And then I'll come back and maybe work another hour or two after I come back inside. So those are my summertime hours. In the wintertime, I don't do that because I'm not spending that time outside. So I have more of a, start in the morning and work to a certain time, and that's it for the day. It may be like an 8 to 4 or an 8 to 5 schedule. But, I kind of do that however I want to do it. It's up to me to decide. And if I decide I want to take off a day during the week, like lots of times, there's an Amish market that I like to go to that's about an hour from my house. And so I'll take off a morning during the week and go to the Amish market, and then I'll work a little bit on Saturday to make up for that. So I set my hours based on when I want to work.
Makes sense. Any other questions? Okay, I have more. How do you plan your week?
How do I plan my week? I use time blocking.
Okay.
And I have a time blocking spreadsheet. And actually, that's one of the things I give away on my website. So if you go to toniakendrick.com, there you can look up time blocking, and I give away a copy of my time blocking spreadsheet. So what I do is generally on Sunday mornings, that's when I like to plan my week. I just kind of figure out, okay, what do I have to get done this week? What do I want to get done this week? And then I block out my any appointments that I have. I don't tend to have a lot of appointments anymore because I like to be more flexible and not be tied down to appointments. But if I have any appointments, I will block those in. And then I decide, okay, what am I going to do which day? And how much time do I think it's going to take to do that? One thing I would say about time blocking is that it does take you a little while to figure out how long tasks take. So I like to track my time. And when you track your time, you'll start to figure out how long it takes you to do things. And so that makes it easier to plan your week. So I make a list of what I think what I want to get done and how long I think each thing is going to take. And then I put that in my time blocking schedule. And I always, always, always have written down more things than I have time to do. So then I go through my list and I start marking things off. It's like, okay, not going to get this done this week. I'm not going to get this done this week. And then I fill in my time blocking and I decide when I'm going to do each one of those things. And I mark things off until it fits. And so that's how I plan out my week.
Got it. Now you say that you do not have one-on-one appointments as much anymore, or you don't have as many appointments anymore. Does that mean you do not take on one-on-one clients? Is that
I don't take on one-on-one clients anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I stopped doing that. I really stopped doing that a couple of years ago. And then last year I took on a few coaching clients just to kind of dip my toe back in the water and see if I wanted to do that again. And I just decided that, you know what, I really don't like having appointments.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that anymore.
It's time consuming. It really is.
Well, it's time consuming, but for me, I lived and died by my calendar in all of those corporate years. I had back-to-back meetings all day long, every day. And I got over that. I don't want to do that anymore. That's not how I want to structure my day. So I spend my time now mostly creating digital products and creating content so that I don't have to have those appointments anymore.
I love that. Okay. Why did you start your business?
Why did I start my business? Well,
Yes.
I was a banker in my corporate years. All of those different roles that I had were all in banking. And after 25 years of that, I was like, you know what? I really just don't want to work in the corporate world anymore. I got tired of that driving constantly from meeting to meeting and just dealing with all of the corporate stuff. And so I decided that I was going to take some time off and figure out what I wanted to do. And so I took a couple of months off and started exploring different options. And I thought, you know what, I really, really want to work from home. So how can I figure out a way to do that? And so I started looking at different business models. And that's when I came up with this. And it's it's not exactly how I intended it to be when I started out. I really thought I was going to do a lot more coaching, and I did a lot of coaching at the beginning. But like I said, I've just, as my business has evolved, I've figured out what I want to do.
Right.
And so it's pivoted a few times along the way. But that's how I got started. Is I was just, I was tired of that whole corporate scene, and I did not want to do that anymore. So I figured out a way that I didn't have to.
I totally relate. Totally. Okay, so my final question, and again, if you all have any questions, feel free to jump in. But my final question for you is, what resources or tools do you use to thrive in your business? I know you mentioned Asana, which is...
Asana is one of the main things that I use. I use a lot of tools, but I would say that my trifecta of tools are Asana, spreadsheets, and Evernote. I really cannot operate without any of those. So, I keep all of my tasks in Asana. All of my notes about anything and everything are in Evernote. I've been using Evernote for probably 15 years now. I could, I could not do without that. It has everything in it. And then I use spreadsheets to organize so many different things. I use it for my time blocking. I use it to track project planning. I use it to track funnels. I use it to track email. Any kind of tracking I need to do, I do it in a spreadsheet. So those are my three main tools. I have a lot of other like kind of side tools that I use
Right.
for things. I use Toggle for time tracking. I mentioned time tracking earlier. Toggle. It integrates with Asana, so that makes it really easy for me to track my tasks because I can just click on the task in Asana and it starts tracking the time for me. Um,
What about email? Do you use Gmail or do you use Outlook or something
I
else?
use Gmail.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to get away from Microsoft just because I still have a free version of the professional version of Microsoft's Office suite from back in my corporate days.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that free version as long as it lasts. I don't want to start having to pay monthly. So I've moved all of my spreadsheets over to Google Sheets. Word because I like Word better than Google Docs.
Yeah, me too.
And what is that? I don't
know. The Google Sheets is incredible, but the Docs needs a little work.
It is. I don't like it. I don't use it unless I have to. And then I have like 8 million Gmail accounts.
Me too. See, I asked you the question about the email because I find that a lot of my emails are getting put in spam. I'm like not receiving emails. That's why I'm thinking about going back to Outlook because when I was in corporate, I used Outlook and it was easy.
Yeah.
Gmail, stuff is getting lost in the sauce. And I don't like that.
I think they try to filter too many things for you.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I don't like about Gmail.
So we'll see. I think I'm going to switch though.
Yeah.
All right, Tonia, does anyone have any other questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I didn't mention this earlier, but I did want to mention it real quickly. I do have something special for y'all today. We've been talking about overwhelm and work life and personal life and how all of that kind of plays together. I have this work-life balance toolkit, and it has a lot of tools and resources that will help you figure out ways to balance all of that out. So it's got some strategies in there. It's got some tools in there that will help you figure out which parts of your life are out of balance, how to reduce your stress levels, and how to create plans just to deal with all of the stuff that we have going on. So there is a work-life balance guide. There is a printable journal. There are worksheets on things like avoiding stress, goal setting, planning, habits. There are some planning and tracking spreadsheets. Like I said, I love spreadsheets. So there's a lot of tools in there, and there are some affirmations as well, which, I like affirmations. So these are affirmations to help you improve your mindset around work-life balance. And so I have a special offer for you guys today for Table Talk attendees. It's the Work-Life Balance Toolkit is normally $47, but you guys can grab it for $27 through July 2nd. So I've got a link for that. Latoya, do you want to drop that link?
Yes.
It's got the coupon code built into it.
Okay, I'm dropping it in Zoom, and I'm also dropping it in Facebook.
Yeah, great. So the coupon code should be attached to that link, but if it's not, it's Table Talk. I'm not good at coming up with creative coupons.
Oh, keep it simple. I love it.
I try to be just as straightforward as I can because that's just about all that my brain
Me
can
too. Me too. All right. Well, we do not have any more questions. Doesn't look like it on Facebook here. Then where can people find you around the web?
Well, ToniaKendrick.com. That's my website. And I'm on Instagram as Tonia Kendrick. All of my links are on the in the menu bar of my website. That's really the easiest place. Pinterest is my main platform. I love Pinterest. I've been using Pinterest. Well, I've been using Pinterest personally since way back when it first started, but I've been using it for my business since day one for 5 years. So Pinterest is a good place to find, my content.
Yeah.
But as far as interaction, Instagram, and then I have a Facebook page, which actually I think is still under my old brand. I tried to change it to my new brand, but it didn't take. The easiest way to find those really is to go to ToniaKendrick.com, and then in the menu bar, there are links.
Okay. Well, sounds good. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Tanya, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here. I've enjoyed it. I was really excited about it, and I hope you guys got some good tips that will help you, deal with your overwhelm.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. So be on the lookout for the next Table Talk Tuesday. I don't know. I think I'm going to take some of Tanya tips, and I might take off the summer. We shall see. I might take off and come back in the fall for Table Talk because, like I said, I'm trying to rebrand, and I'm trying not to have the overwhelm. So just be on the lookout. Thank you all. Have a great day.